All right, we're just getting started. Let's see. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Money in Life TV. And today we have a very special guest, Grant Armstrong, who's trying to join the stream as we speak. Let me see if I can get him on board here. One second, guys. I'm texting him right now, trying to get him in the chat room. Let's see. It shows that you're added to the stream, Grant. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I can hear you now too. Excellent. I can't see you yet, but I can hear you. Let's see. How's everybody doing today? Thank you for joining us on this stream. We're going to be talking about different ways. Once Grant's able to pop on here, we're going to be talking about different ways you can utilize your books to save money with your accounting records. So I've been wanting to do something like this for quite a while, and Grant suggested it. So I think he's trying to rejoin here, ladies and gentlemen. So sorry, bear with me just a moment as we get this going. I think he's going to try to rejoin. Let's see here. Let me pop over in chat. Can you guys? I see there's at least 5 people in here right at this moment. Can you guys hear me okay? Looking over in the comments. Sorry, guys, for the difficulties. For some reason, he's having trouble connecting to the stream. So, hey, Stephanie, how's it going? Hey, thanks for joining us. Stephanie, what part of the country are you in? All right, Oh, from Turlock. No kidding. Okay. That's where I'm from. So, perfect. Actually, that's exactly where I'm from originally. Now here in Modesto. So, okay. Let me try adding Grant to the stream one more time here. Hey, Grant, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you, but I can at least hear you. Stephanie, since you're in the chat, can you hear Grant okay? If you don't mind commenting. Yeah, it's so weird. I don't know why. I know we tested this yesterday, and we were able to see Grant just fine. So something's just going on with his camera right at the moment. So hopefully that will get resolved as the stream goes on.
Is the audio coming through okay?
Yeah, your sound is crisp. It sounds really good. Do you perhaps have your camera on somewhere else as well, which is preventing the app from accessing it?
I don't think so. I have it going through OBS.
Do you? Okay.
Just like yesterday. Yeah.
Okay. That is so strange.
As soon as I switch it to my webcam instead of OBS, that's when it kind of kicks me out of everything. So I'm scared to switch it back.
Sure.
Man, I had that green screen set up and everything.
Oh, you guys should have seen it. He had this like fancy green screen with a library and everything. We were I'm hoping you can get that back at some point. But for now, you are a beautiful OBS symbol, and we'll just keep it at that.
So, yeah, free advertising for them, I guess.
Free advertising for OBS. Well, Grant, I really appreciate you coming on the stream today. And yeah, I just want to talk about what you do and how what you do helps people save money with their accountant, tax preparer, CPA, and things like that. And so, and just so you guys know, like none of this is rehearsed. So this is truly live. So right off the cuff. So I wanted to start off, Grant, that I wanted to ask you. So let's just start off by introducing yourself. So tell the audience what you do and how you help them or how you help your clients.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So I started my own practice here in Modesto, California, just like you, actually in the same month as you in February of this year.
That is pretty crazy.
So, yeah, that was pretty crazy to find out and kind of connect about. But so I market myself to kind of help the small business people in my community where, you know, they might not necessarily be able to afford the larger accounting firms. There's a couple here in Modesto and in Stanislaus County. But, you know, I try to pride myself in being not only really good at what I do and efficient, but affordable also. Because I know that's something, especially now with, you know, concerns about inflation and a recession and things like that. The price and money is on a lot of people's minds, but you know, the need for accounting never stops. So I try to accommodate that as best I can, and you know, provide value and things. I really like to meet with business owners or individuals or, you know, clients in general, and kind of get a feel for them and their business. And it's really just a listening time to see kind of what their needs are, and you know, if I'd be a good fit and how I could help any way I can.
Excellent. Well, thank you for introducing yourself. And so I will have to mention personally that I know Grant on a personal level. So I actually used to work with him at one of the previous accounting firms I used to work at. So not only is Grant offering, you know, his accounting services at an affordable price, but also he is professionally trained, which is one reason I feel so comfortable bringing Grant on. He's not just some guy who took an internet course. He's actually done this at a very, you know, some large firms and has that experience under his belt. So that's why when there's a couple clients I'm currently working with that as actually are using Grant for bookkeeping related purposes, payroll related purposes, and some other means. So it's been fun working with Grant thus far. And so now, Grant, I know you told me you're in the process of putting QuickBooks course together, which we'll get to that perhaps a little bit later in the video. But I would love to hear from you, like just what can you share with the audience? Like as somebody who's been, how long have you been doing this now as bookkeeping and all this and that?
All this and that, probably about coming on 10 years now.
10 years. Okay. Yeah. So, and I've been in the profession now. This is my 13th year. So, between you and I, we're getting up there. We're in the 20s if we combine our experience, but
getting close.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. So, I guess what are some of the things that you are seeing on a regular basis that whether it's from an accounting perspective or some other type of financial analytic that you're seeing that if people just did a couple different steps, they could potentially save some money with their CPA or with their accountant?
Yeah. So first of all, kind of elaborating on the topic is like saving money on your accounting bill is kind of what I think you and I were kind of talking about, right? So, you know, the idea being that when let's say you're a business or you're an individual, maybe you have some rentals and stuff, or you got quite a bit going on, and you take things to your CPA, right? And they spend time going through everything, cleaning it all up, and preparing your return. So they bill you based on the time that it takes them to prepare that return or to do that work, right? So Absolutely. Just for I know you know this, like for the listeners, right? So, so these are some things I've learned in my years of doing this. Like I've done the bookkeeping, I've done the returns, I've been on a couple audits. Like I've kind of been all over the place. So there's just been some consistent things I thought, you know, you and I could talk about, and totally feel free to disagree or correct me or anything if there's anything that you had a different opinion on than I do. But I think we'll probably be in the same boat. But these are some common things that I've noticed. Oh, there we go. That's a beautiful man right there.
All right. So this is, I know his camera's not working, but this is Grant Armstrong, just so you guys can see who we're talking to here. So
I'll keep that pose the whole time just so it's the same effect.
Yeah, I trust you to never
know that
blink.
I'm actually crossing my arms right now.
I challenge you to not blink once during this interview, Grant. Just don't blink once.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, well, with what you said, Grant, it's absolutely true. So when I'm factoring in, now I try myself personally, I try to stay more on the tax side and consulting side of things. I mean, I often will leave the bookkeeping part. I do some, but for the most part, I like to leave that piece of the business to somebody else, so they can truly just focus on that piece, whereas I help with the tax side, the tax planning, and just other matters. But It
Right.
is so true. So like, it takes, so with CPAs, and I don't know if a lot of you guys know this out there, accountants, and whether you're licensed or not, accountants are extremely busy these days. Part of the problem with that is especially in the public part of things that helps with like people's personal taxes, financial statements, and things like that. There's actually not a lot of new graduates going into the profession. And if people do go into the profession, they're actually moving towards corporate or, some private companies, because they often will pay more off the bat. And so there's a less incentive for people who do what I do to join the profession. So with that, accountants being so busy with what they are, do with the current capacity, many are overloaded or can no longer take a lot of work on. And so when they're looking at bringing on a new client, we have to look at, okay, what's the client asking us to do, and also what is their bookkeeping methods? What do their books look like? What do the financials look like? Now, there's a few times that where the books are squeaky clean and I can just roll with them and I can ask very minimal questions. But like Grant, with what you're saying, like more often than not, there's usually some issues with the books that affect the tax return and the accuracy of that tax return. So without I always tell people the accounting records and the books are the true foundation of the tax return. It's not the other way around. It's the books are the foundation of everything. And so if those numbers aren't right, then your financials, your taxes, they may be materially incorrect, because if somebody's not looking at those numbers closely, and if they're just filing your taxes without asking you any questions, they're probably doing something wrong more often than not, by not taking that extra time to get to understand what's on your financial records and what those transactions mean. And so, so we have to evaluate how much time each job's going to take, and then estimate. So I don't do an hourly rate so much anymore, but more so like a fixed fee arrangement or value pricing. But I have to come up with some sort of estimate in order to conduct that work, if that makes sense. So,
yeah, and I bet if you look at the books beforehand, or before you give a quote or something, if they're a little messy, it probably increases the quote that you would be pitching, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's more work for you.
So I have a perfect example. So I had somebody come to me recently as a referral, and they ran a business the entire year. And when they came to me, they were really needing help, and I wanted to help them out because it's from somebody I trusted, and it was a referral. And what I came to find out is they had done no accounting the entire year for their business. And so the only thing I had to go off of is bank statements. Well, it took me a good 10 to 20 hours to put those numbers together. I mean,
right.
And they didn't have QuickBooks, they didn't have any software. And so their bookkeeping in that case was more than the cost of me doing their tax return. Their tax return was really simple, but their records were such a mess. It took most of the time was spent doing that work.
Right. Yeah. Messes they can be fun to clean up. I always kind of treat them like a puzzle, to kind of work through, especially if it's a brand new client, trying to figure everything out, see what's going on from like a 10,000 foot view. Right. But when you're working on it for a client, and you have to bill, by the hour, or you've quoted them already, and, your time is costing them money, and a lot of people, want go, and to have everything, figured out as quick as possible. There's things beforehand and kind of during that time that I think can help a lot of people out. I have, not to do that trope to everybody, but I have probably the biggest and most important one, to me at least, that I'm going to save for the end. But this one I've seen add thousands of dollars to a bill when it didn't need to.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
So, and as soon as I tell you what it is, I'm sure you'll agree with me, because I almost guarantee you've seen it before too. But so some of the first ones I have, I think you're familiar because we kind of came from the same place. Do you remember the term pick up and put down?
Yes, pick up and put down. When you start something and you get part of the way through, and then all of a sudden you have to go off and do something else. Yeah.
Yep. Or, if you reach a roadblock or something and you have questions out to a client and you can't proceed until those questions are answered. That was another part of it I ran into frequently. But like in the office we used to work in, it was called pick up and put down. And they wanted to minimize that as much as possible, because, you know, that's driving up the time, because then you have to set it aside. And, you know, then if maybe it's a couple days, even you have to wait, and then you have to get reacquainted with everything, and that just adds more time. So whenever, to kind of help minimize that, whenever I email my clients, if I have any questions, I usually put it all in one email.
Okay.
And, you know, like I'll write them out as I'm working through everything, and I'll get to the point where I absolutely can't proceed until I have these questions answered, and I'll send that out. And I've had a couple clients who, when I do that, you know, I had a really big project a couple months ago. It was probably, if you print it out, it was probably like a 2 or 3 page email that I had to send.
Wow.
Because it was a
novel.
huge undertaking. Yeah. But she was replying a couple emails at a time, or a couple questions at a time, which is fine. You know, but like, I think just for a client's perspective, it would be easier to respond with all responses in an email at once, kind of like in kind when we send it, you know?
Yeah.
Because that way you can get as much done as you can without, you know, wondering, are there more emails coming in, or are there other questions or things she's going to ask or he's going to ask, or anything like that. That was one of the easiest things, I think, for someone who's working with an accountant to do, is, you know, you don't need to learn anything or figure anything out. I think replying kind of all at once would help a lot.
Absolutely. And can I add to that so I don't know if the audience is aware, but yeah, what Grant's saying is absolutely true. So especially in if you do anything, or if you're in a profession that's really detail oriented, when you step away from something that you've really had to, you know, really concentrate on, focus on, and you step away from that project for a couple days, even a couple hours, you can easily start to forget where you left off. And so when you get back in, you have to kind of reacquaint yourself with where you were at. And then not only that, but the chance for error, as studies have been done on this, that you actually dramatically increase your chance of having errors when you're doing the work, if you're constantly picking up something and putting it back down, because at some point you're going to forget where you left off, or you were thinking about looking at something, but then when you get back to it, you totally forget what that thing was, and you never look back at that one piece, and then you don't realize it's wrong, if you realize it's wrong, until a lot later. And
exactly.
So, yeah, exactly. And so, like, and that's one thing that I think clients can do. Like, if you're working with an accountant or anybody in this capacity, like, so Grant, I'm sure your clients really appreciate you putting everything as much as possible in one email too, versus them getting 10 different emails from you.
Oh, for sure. And then, you know, that makes it easier to find too. Like if they ever need to go back to something I've sent them, since that also cuts down on the number of emails you send, it's a lot easier to find things. And that goes the other way too, right? If, let's say I've had a couple people call me with questions with something that they sent me a couple weeks ago, like while they were on vacation or something. And that, you know, I have to dig through all my emails to find what they're talking about. So the fewer emails with more content, the better, I would say. Probably like quality over quantity, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to add to that, if I may. So now, if you're a client and you're receiving an email from me or Grant or from your accountant or whomever, don't hesitate. If you can't respond to everything all in that email, let's say there's 10 questions that you have to go through, then just feel free to give them a quick response. Say, hey, I got your email. Let me get back to you once I can address all of these. And that way your accountant or whoever you're working with knows that you've looked at it. And then when you have time, carefully look at every single question and then respond to each question all in one email if you can. And if you're not certain, feel free to pick up the phone and go over it that way.
Absolutely. So that kind of goes into my next thing too. It was kind of a two-pronged thing that I had noticed. So the first part of it was, if you have a question, just feel free to ask. It's like, I forget what the saying is. It's like, it's better to ask, what is it? Forgiveness than permission, or something like that.
Yeah.
If you have to pay for it, like if people try and do something themselves, and, you know, maybe it not be it might not be done the best way, and then they need an accountant to come fix it. It might not be better to ask for forgiveness than permission because you're paying for it, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I have people call me all the time with questions. I part of my thing with my practice and not, trying to be as affordable as I can. I don't bill people personally unless there's any work that I have to do. Like if I, log into a server or go down to their location or something. Like if people call me with a question or email me, I just respond, I always joke like I don't bill like an attorney for,
That's a good,
6 minutes at a time. Um, yeah, so I try to encourage that. I'm all about, empowerment and education. And I think a lot of people appreciate that because, accounting can be one of those things where you can feel like you're giving your books or all your records or receipts or whatever to somebody. Then they just they do their thing and then bill you whatever they want. Right.
right.
But I've always thought like transparency and kind of like coaching people, even if that's what they're interested in. Like, I think that can be a great thing. But the other side of that is Google is your friend. That guy has gotten me through college. Many accounting questions at 2 a.m. that I couldn't find in my book. But there's a lot of free resources out there. Just Googling things. If you have a question like, where should this go? How should I treat this? Maybe if you're with an accountant that does charge for, like phone calls and things like that, and you're a little hesitant to reach out, chances are it's probably on Google or YouTube or something somewhere. You probably have a video on it too, huh, Mike? Whatever
Actually,
it
I
is.
don't. I've never done bookkeeping specific videos, but perhaps I will in the future because I have gotten some requests for that. There's an attorney I'm talking to right now who I think he's going to be he's going to be a client. He for next year. He's like, can you do a video on what's the difference between accrual and cash? I'm like, sure. I need to put something like that together.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That is a big one. So we got some comments here I want to get to. Kel says, and I'll ask you, Grant, get your opinion on this. Kel says, is it true that bookkeeping is also its own specialty like audit or tax? What do you think?
That's a great question. I would say it is. I think officially it's probably not considered that, like if you, let's say, if I went back 5 years ago and I went to the CPA firm that we worked at and I said, yeah, I'd like you guys to hire me. I specialize in bookkeeping. I don't think that would have gotten very far in the accounting profession, but I think in the real world, it's definitely a skill. I think, I know we both worked with people where, like if they prepare tax returns and then let's say they get a set of books to prepare the tax returns, but it's not clean. They don't know what to do because, and this isn't everybody obviously, but there's definitely people where it's like, I don't know what to do with this. I kind of just prepare the return, but I don't know how it gets to me. So I think it's a skill for sure. Or like a separate, kind of a field of study. And, I think there's a much more personal touch to it because when you're working with the books of a business or an individual, there's, I think, a lot more contact, like I think I had like 30 or so clients. When I was at that firm, I had the most, I believe, in my department.
Wow. I didn't realize you had the most. So that just speaks to your work ethic and your skill then.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I did, but I'm just hoping no one that we worked with is watching right now and is going to comment and say, actually, you were third or, whatever it was.
Or you're just a yes man. You just can't say no. Maybe that's what it was.
I know for sure that was part of it. But part of what I really loved about that job is that's where I built most of my bookkeeping skills is the constant contact you have with clients that I don't think I could match when I was preparing returns. Because like when you're running payroll and stuff on a regular basis, or you're doing accounts payable or bank statement stuff and things like that. And you have to call your clients all the time. Sometimes they stop by and they bring you documents and stuff, and you sit down and have a chat with them. I think it's a human to human connection that it's not absent, but I think it's diminished in like, a tax, for example. Auditing has that too, right? Like if you go out to a client's business or something, like you're looking at documents and reviewing records and things like that. So, but there is like a personal touch to it, right? Because you physically go there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think the book, like even, a lot of people diminish some people think of a bookkeeper as somebody lesser than a tax preparer, lesser than, but absolutely not. Like bookkeeping is a very extensive and skill, or very extensive and important skill to have. And without that, your books, like I said, everything, if the books aren't right, everything else is going to be wrong. And so 100%, it's a dedicated skill, and it takes many years to learn. And so I think with you having that experience, luckily you've worked at a bit of a larger firm, and so you've seen a lot of really complex issues, and so that's how I think helped you develop a lot quicker than if you were trying to do this on your own and then slowly learn over time. Am I right?
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And like, so I don't know, I don't think I've ever shared this with my audience, but like payroll is not my thing. So like many years ago when I got into the profession, when I was a young whippersnapper, I did some payroll, but I've been out of payroll for many, many years. Now, could I do it? Yeah, I think I could, but it's not something I do on a regular basis. So the difference between Grant and I, just so you guys understand, is so for me in my career, I was doing primarily taxes, estates and trust, advising on tax planning and things like that, like 40 hours a week, right? For many, many, many years. Whereas Grant was doing bookkeeping and payroll 40 hours a week and mastering QuickBooks. Like Grant knows QuickBooks better than I do personally. And I'm not afraid to admit that. In fact, I've reached out to you, Grant, a few times like, hey, Grant, like I got this weird QuickBooks thing. Google's not helping me out here. Like, can I bounce this off you? And Grant sometimes saves my butt because I wasn't working in QuickBooks all the time. I do so now. I do it more than I used to. But when I was at those firms, I was just primarily doing tax returns and just making tax adjusting journal entries and things like that.
Yeah, and just to add one last thing, the great thing too is like I'm one of those people where it always sounds corny to me when I say it, but I genuinely do love learning new things. And I think there's a great strength in, like, let's say, just we'll pick the big three, and let's say like tax, accounting, or bookkeeping and auditing, right?
Yeah.
They're all under the umbrella of accounting. So, it's not like if a tax preparer wants to try bookkeeping or a bookkeeper wants to try auditing, there's no new set of terms you have to learn and, different things like that. It's once you kind of get a handle on accounting in general, I think it's a great way to explore those different aspects of accounting. And that's kind of what they did. I remember when I was in college, and, you have to take all those courses for your major. When I majored in accounting, so you have to take obviously like intermediate accounting, auditing. I took a couple tax classes, and so you can kind of see like what each field is like. But the more you take those classes or the more you work in that industry, you can kind of see how they're like getting connected together. And I remember doing tax returns for clients that I also did the accounting for. Back when we worked together, it was such a cool experience for me because the departments were separated. The bookkeeping department was separate from tax, but it was cool for me to see, how the, not just the data, but like all of the principles and everything that you saw cleaning up the books flow through to the tax return. I think it reinforced the learning in such a great way that is vastly superior to, if I just tried to start studying bookkeeping or just started studying tax. I think the combination of the two is a really incredible thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, you get to see the whole picture, whereas in some instances you can only see a piece of it. But if you get that experience, and luckily Grant and I have both had extensive experience doing this kind of work, but eventually you get to see the entire picture, then everything makes way more sense. At least in my opinion.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like if you work on an assembly line, and then you report to your supervisor and they say, all right, you got to attach these two parts together for, 8 hours a day versus like getting a tour of the whole line and seeing like, all right, once it's done with you, it goes to this person who does this. And then, down the line, you get to see the car at the end.
Yeah, you're
That's
like,
kind of what I would equate it to.
Yeah, it's like you can't see what you're building, but then eventually, if you get the whole tour, then you're like, oh, all these little pieces added up to this car. I get it now. Like I can see it.
Exactly.
We got a couple comments coming through. Some questions. I got two for you here. So one is from Jim. Where do business? This is a really good question. So Jim, I appreciate you asking this. Where do business owners go to find someone with bookkeeping skills?
Well, one of them is on the stream right now. So that's a great question. But no, just to take that, seriously, we have fun here. That's a great question. Some of it is luck, I think. I've definitely worked with some people that have had more skills than others, and like if you're going for an interview process or something that you're looking for someone, my advice would be, no matter how much it might hurt at the time, you really, really want a quality person that you think works well, like with your culture, that has very technical knowledge, but also, has personable and real world experience.
Yeah.
I've seen so many times where, if let's say there's an opening or someone gets let go in a finance department and someone just hires the first person or the second or third person that comes in the door to put out some fires that are going on, instead of taking the time to really not try people out per se, but kind of filter through and really give people like a second, third look. You know what I mean?
Yeah, be a little bit more thorough in terms of the way you process those potential candidates.
Right. If you're looking for a specific like source, I would say I've heard really good things about Indeed. That's been a thing I've heard from several clients looking for people, not just like accountants and bookkeepers, but all aspects of business. Sure. I think they're probably like the number one, what's it called? The number one thing in America, like to hire people or to
like those
get people from
recruiter or recruiting
recruiter.
sites.
Yeah, that's the that's the word.
I figured that's what you're trying to say. Okay.
Yeah, like I think it used to be LinkedIn, but it recently shifted to Indeed, I think, and I don't have any affiliation with them or anything. It's just kind of what I've heard.
Yeah,
working.
And I'll also add, yeah, definitely Indeed, but also from my experience, from what I've observed, is that often it's kind of like finding a good contractor to do put a windows in your house, or plumbing, or who it's usually like ask a friend, right? So yeah. So often, if you're a business owner, whether you're small or large, some of the best people to ask are other successful business owners, because they usually, if they're successful, that means they typically have a good CPA or bookkeeper or team of people helping them already, because their business has grown to that level where they need that level of service from others to help them keep their business running and operational. And so they're some of the best resources you can reach out to as well, and they can give you referrals or other names. So but that also can backfire. So you do have to be careful. So like Grant's saying, be thorough and don't be afraid to, interview a couple of people or get a couple names. So and talk to them and to see who you feel comfortable with and who you feel will understand your business the best and do the best work for you. That's my personal advice on that one.
And the other thing too is something that I've noticed at least one CPA firm in the area has started to do. I don't know if you've heard about this either, but they're interviewing candidates for their clients to kind of screen them for their skill level. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yes. My last firm, that's exactly what they did as well. They were one of their large clients was needing a new bookkeeper, and so we actually helped them interview them or interview that bookkeeper for them to help them out, so that because they were in construction. They're not going to know like if somebody's good or bad at bookkeeping. They're just not going to know. So like that's why they would reach out to somebody like a CPA or Grant or to help them determine that.
If I look at a mechanic's resume, I'm not going to know what any of that stuff means.
Right, you're not going to know.
They can make up anything they want.
That's right. No, like, yeah, I'll fix your car for you, Grant. No problem.
Yeah,
you
but
you don't want me fixing your car.
Yeah, if I, if an accountant looks at another accountant's resume, you can kind of pick up on things that would be susceptible to fluff. Like a lot of, I don't know if it's a real thing or you just hear about it, but like when people puff up their resume, like, what is it? There's an example that was like handling the daily cleanliness of the office means taking out the trash, stuff like that. Accountants can be good at picking that stuff apart for other accountants. So that could be another option too. If you have a relationship currently with an accounting office, that you could ask, and that might be a resource they provide.
Wonderful pointers. That's fantastic. I love that. Now, Stephanie Affel has a question. So Stephanie asked, do you typically need a degree for a bookkeeping career or job?
That is also a good question. I don't so there's not really any, like there's no law that says you do. I think you have a vast superiority over other candidates in as far as terms or as far as chance of, like landing a job. If you do have a degree, just because you have more technical knowledge, like book knowledge and stuff. But like, I know for sure, and Mike, you might agree, like learning accounting in school is you learn stuff from the book, and then you go out in the real world and you're like, all right, how does this really work? Like we've learned the textbook way, but once you're sitting in front of QuickBooks or UltraTax or something, it's like you have to learn from the ground up anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
So it's like, if you're trying to land a job, I think it's hard to get a job like that without at least a bachelor's degree, in business or something, or, some experience. Like, let's say if you have a family member that has a business and you've helped them out with the books and learn for a little bit, that could help you out. But like, so for CPAs, I think there's a requirement for the credits that you have, which basically requires you to get a master's degree, right?
It does now. Yeah. So now they require you. Didn't used to be like that, but that changed in 2014. So now you basically had the equivalent number of units as you might as well basically would incentivize people to get their master's degree, because it was right below what it would take to get a master's degree in order to then be able to sit as a candidate for the CPA exam. Now,
right.
And while we're on this topic, I'll just say, like, there's a lot. I asked a room of business owners a couple months ago. I said, "Do you know the difference between a CPA and a tax preparer?" I said, "Is there any difference?" And most people had no clue what the difference was. So, kind of like to what Grant's saying here, ladies and gentlemen, is that you don't technically need a degree, and even like a person doing your taxes, they don't need a degree. They can just they could learn from Google if they wanted to. They could try to learn from Google. So just know that if I would ask them, like, hey, do you have a background in accounting? Do you have a degree? Do you have a license of some kind? What's your experience? Just ask them, just to make sure you're not getting somebody who has very little to no experience helping you with these very important financial matters. Right. And that they're probably going to be a lot cheaper because they don't have that experience. But you just got to be cautious out there of who you work with, because they don't need a degree to do your books or do your taxes, but you better hope they have a lot of knowledge. And real world experience trumps everything else by far. When I came out of college, like I learned stuff from the books. I learned the concepts of accounting, but when, like what Grant was saying, when I sat down and started doing real work, I really learned at that point. That's when I really learned, because I couldn't see the whole picture and how it all worked in the real world. And so it's a massive difference. So you look at, I would say probably 80 to 90% of what I know today was all on the job.
Right. Yeah. If a client comes to you and says like, hey, I want to sell this boat. and I want to know if I need to pay any tax on that. That, that doesn't really help if in school you learned the accounting cycle.
Yeah,
You know what I
you're
mean? Like,
you're like, oh, well, I know how to debit that and credit that on your books. Taxes, I have no idea. No.
yeah, you'd be like, well, I don't know, but if I had to book the tax, I sure know how to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, real world experience is the best.
absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about some other ways. So I hope the audience can understand like how important it is to have somebody knowledgeable doing your financial records, because it really does make a massive difference of how not only whether you save money on taxes or whatever, but how you operate as a whole. Like it really changes the entire picture. Um,
Hmm.
and to keep you out of trouble and keeping because our like for me and probably for you, Grant, but like one of my main goals is like I want to make sure my specialty is taxes and accounting, right? So I want to make sure my clients can operate and do their business because that's what they do best, and they don't have to worry so much about the number side. I'm there to help them with that,
Exactly.
and so they are much more valuable doing what they do because I can't do what they do, right? But I can help them with the numbers. I can do that, and you can do that.
Yeah, you can take stuff off their plate as a business owner. As I've definitely learned, and I'm sure you've probably learned too, at least some degree. It's a lot of work owning a business.
Yes,
I
if you
found that
never
out
owned a
very
business,
quickly.
it's like drinking through a fire hose because it's been it's been a little scary, but it's overall exciting overall. But
Exactly.
it's a whole different world than if you're just doing one piece of a business. Then all of a sudden you have to take everything on all at once.
Yep.
So
I had my dad caught COVID last year, and he had some hardships in his business where he had to deal with that illness, and then had a couple people leave. And seeing him go through all that at the same time, was pretty hard. And that's part of what kind of led me to want to go out on my own, is to kind of offer help to people like that, because there's definitely a need for it, I think. And like that feeding into how much work it is as a business owner, especially now figuring that out on my own is insane.
yeah,
It's
the
There's so
learning
much
curve
stuff
is
that's involved. Yeah. But
absolutely.
as far as other tips I have, I would say automation is a huge tool that clients can have that they may not know they have access to.
Okay, yeah, elaborate on
Um,
that. That sounds like a great one.
yeah, so I think QuickBooks is probably one of, if not the top accounting software in the country, I would imagine. And they have a few different tools, but one of my favorites is called Bank Feeds. And if you're not tech savvy, or not really accounting savvy, it can sound a bit scary, because what it does is your QuickBooks file can connect, and tons of other software does this too, but it will connect with your bank directly, or your credit card, or like your loan or a mortgage or something.
Okay,
It connects with it directly and can download and import transactions for you. And so it
nice.
reduces a lot of manual labor time of doing that, but also, any mistakes or miskeying a transaction amount or something like that, that could happen. It's like every person that I've ever worked with that's set up on QuickBooks, I always push for them to sign up for that, because a lot of them don't know how much time it would actually save them. And that's the other part of that too, is, if it gets to us and there's data entry mistakes, maybe, especially if, the banks haven't been reconciled or something, and you have to go through line by line for a whole year and try and figure out, what's wrong or what's going on. Bank Feeds at the beginning could have helped that in a lot
Okay,
of situations. I think you've used that a little bit too, right?
I
Bank Feeds
have.
and
I
stuff?
have. There's a client I do that for right now. Actually, well, maybe a few, but yeah, automation is key because if you can set up a rule, if you know like a certain expense is going to be reoccurring in your business, that's like a perfect example of something every month. Like let's just say your internet bill is from Comcast or something for your business, and that's for your business internet as an example. when it
Mhm.
downloads from the bank statement, it will automatically, you create that rule and it will automatically post to that account. So you don't have to do any entry, but it gets into your accounting records appropriately.
Right. I had back in the day, I had a client who did a lot of online retail sales, and she would sell things to countries all over the world. And I set up, I want to say it was about 400 banking rules for her.
Oh my gosh, 400
And
rules.
yeah, and I had them auto add to her file so you can fill it out to meet a certain set of criteria. And if you want, you can either have it code it for you, but you can still look at it and review it and make sure it's okay.
Yeah.
Or if you're really specific and know what you're doing, you can have it automatically add it for you so you don't even have to worry about it. And she had like hundreds of transactions per day because
Wow.
each individual sale and expense and stuff was recorded as a separate transaction in her bank account. And so she had to keep track of like, these are sales from eBay versus Etsy, versus Shopify and like all this stuff. And it saved so much time once I got that set up. I think the first month I was working on it, it probably took me about 40 hours as a brand new client to get used to everything, like how she was doing things.
Wow.
And once I got that set up, I was working on it maybe an hour a week. Like it was
Wow.
so smooth, and
Oh my
and
gosh.
I know that cut down her bill big time.
That's insane. So there's a perfect example of how you can save people money right there. So in order to, like, if she had to have somebody in her office doing that for her manually, she'd be paying a full-time employee versus
Yeah.
automation. Boom, it's all there. And then you can do it in like an hour versus 40 hours.
Yep. Basically, my hour was only spent just checking a few things, making sure that everything pulled through correctly. But better than all that time spent putting it in by hand. For
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. I love that example. Wow. I didn't know you had that kind of situation when you were at the firm. So that's interesting to hear that. We do have a question in the comments. So it's another good question about like, how do you find a good bookkeeper? Kel asks, how many years of experience, Grant, do you feel is good for a bookkeeper to have?
That's a good question. It depends. I mean, it depends on a lot of things, right? Like it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking to hire someone versus maybe if you are a bookkeeper and kind of want to know how you're doing, where you're at.
Yeah.
There's several different ways you could look at that. I would say it might sound like kind of a cop out. I would say there's no real number. Like once you have 5 years of experience, like you're good. I've met people that have had 40 years of experience that don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's tough just going by a number.
So it's almost like they have to have enough variety of exposure to understand like all the different elements, right? Because if they're just stuck in one position for the most of their career, they're not going to get the full picture. Perhaps maybe that's what limits their overall knowledge.
And so just my own personal self as an example, I worked before we worked together, I worked at a firm for about 4 years before that. And I would say I maybe got 20% of my overall accounting experience at that firm.
Okay, 20%. That's
in 4 years. And then when I worked at the firm with you, I was there for 3 years. And I'd say I probably got about 70% of my accounting experience in my career.
What was the first firm relatively small versus the other one you worked at?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
But there's other factors too. Like I was just starting out. I was in college at the time in my undergrad. So I'm sure there was a limitation to some of the stuff that they would teach me and let me handle and stuff. But variety is the spice of life for sure. And I think it'd be easier for me, let's say if I was looking at candidates to hire, to look at the quality of experience that they have and, like a wide range of things, as opposed to like, employee B, let's say that I'm looking at hiring, has had the same like bookkeeping position for 20 years, let's say.
Uh-huh.
You know, like being at a CPA firm like we were, you get to work with so many clients and see so many different things. I think you learn exponentially faster than, let's say, if you're working in a private company and, you know, like kind of move up and get promoted, let's say, because, you know, like if you work for a, I don't know, let's say like a car dealership, right?
Uh-huh.
You get really, really good at the types of transactions that car dealerships deal with, you know, like facilitating loans and making sales and paying out commissions and stuff. But, you know, as soon as you change industry or change whoever you're working for, it's like you're starting from ground zero,
Yeah.
you know?
That's a
And
great point.
if you know, if someone's worked there for 20 years, let's say, and, you know, if that dealership goes under and they need to get a new job, chances are it's probably going to be another dealership or starting out somewhere else at the ground floor.
Yeah.
So I know that might not be exactly the answer you're looking for. I wish I could provide a number, but
but I mean,
think
it makes sense. So just because
yeah,
they have X number of years of experience, they might not have a variety of experience enough to really benefit your business to what degree you're looking for. So, and I was lucky, like personally, because you know I've like over the past 4 years, you know, I've been making all these educational YouTube videos on this channel before I ever launched my accounting practice. But like with what Grant's saying is a lot of that experience came from the job and just the variety of things I encountered. So like I had clients that I worked with now. Um, my largest client when I was at that firm had a net worth of over $100 million, and so I got to work on all their taxes, all their estate plans, everything. It was so cool. That one client had 16 tax returns I had to file every single year. 16 for one person. So that, I mean,
jeez.
that's how much they had going on. And Grant, you probably have an idea of who I'm talking about because you worked at that firm. Um,
Yep.
but without working at a larger firm, I probably would have never seen that. You know, you just don't know. So just by working in different places and larger firms, you get a grasp of what type of experience the person has. And I think every bookkeeper, every CPA, you know, is going to have a different set of experience. And I think it's important to keep that in mind when you're looking for one.
And I just thought of something else too that might answer the question in kind of a more satisfying way. There's something I've become acquainted with in the recent years called imposter syndrome. Have you ever heard of that?
Imposter syndrome. No, explain.
So if you work in any profession, you know, you can be very qualified and have a lot of experience and be very good at what you do, but you can still feel like you don't really know what you're doing.
Oh, okay.
Even though you absolutely have all the skills, you know, like if a doctor is performing brain surgery and they've been doing it for 30 years, they can get in this kind of mental funk where they're like, am I really a professional? Like, yeah, I do this, but what does that mean? Am I really any good? That kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
So to answer this question and actually throw out a number, I'll be bold and throw out a number and say, for me, when I stopped feeling imposter syndrome, especially like in and fresh out of college, probably took me about 6 years
Okay.
of
Yeah.
being in the industry.
Well, it makes
So that's what I would say. If you're really, really looking for a number, I don't know if it's exactly answering your question, but I'd say 6 years, maybe. I don't know.
And so actually you're probably about right. If that was a number, if that was a rough target. And so the same with taxes too. So I'll never forget this. At some point in my career, I was at a partner retreat and they were talking about hiring new staff and this and that and the other. And they were talking about how long does it take for somebody who's just starting out of college at an accounting firm to become proficient at what they do. And she said it's about 4 to 5 years. It takes 4 to 5 years of full-time work before that person actually can fully understand what they're doing. And so that stuck with me because and with our professions, it's so broad and so complex. I absolutely agree with that. There's so much to learn. You learn every single day. There's not a day that goes by in my profession or in my business that I don't learn something new.
Right.
I would say.
And it's impossible to learn it all.
No, you
Like
can't learn it
no
all. That's the
human on
thing.
earth can know everything about accounting.
That's why I have you, Grant, for payroll, QuickBooks and all these other things that I can't do all by myself.
Well, what bugs me too is the Internal Revenue Service code, is like reams of paper if you print it out. Like no
Yeah.
person, the people that wrote it don't even know everything. They just know the section that they wrote. And
Yeah.
it's like how are we expected to comply with this, when it's just this massive code that you basically only have to look at whatever you need specifically. You can't know the whole thing.
Maybe that's why I can't get a hold of them because they're still trying to figure out what they wrote when they called the IRS.
Oh, it's very possible. When you're on hold for literally 3 hours before you can talk to anybody, they're probably going through their library of code trying to figure out what you're calling about.
Yeah, probably. So, was the automation the number one tip, or is there another one?
Oh, there's another one. This is the bombshell.
Okay, I'm
And
ready for it.
if
I'm
you're
ready.
listening, please, and you own a business or you have a set of books or something, please write this down. I guarantee you this will save you so much money. Please, please
I'm
do
getting,
not
I'm a
change.
CPA and I'm getting a pen out. What do you got for me? Pen is
Please
ready.
do not change prior year data.
Oh yes! Oh my goodness!
Please don't do it. I can't count how many times I was asked to look at a set of books or prepare a return, and I was going through everything as normal. And when tying it out, right, and I make sure that the ending balances of last year tie to the beginning balances of the current year, and something's missing, that's when something's going on, and it's never immediately clear what it is. I've had to spend, like, each time I at least spend a couple hours trying to figure it out, and then I spend another hour or so trying to fix it, and then I have to communicate it to maybe the manager or the partner that's on the account, and then they have to review it and understand it and fix it. Maybe they have to call the client to get more information about what happened and why it was done.
Yeah.
It's just a nightmare. If you have any questions about something, especially after a return has been filed for a prior year, please contact your accountant and ask them. That I've seen lead to like thousands of dollars added onto a person's bill because I forget exactly what the example was a few years ago, but basically someone had sold something without telling the firm, the accounting firm, and then it was towards the end of the year, and they were like, after the return had been filed, they were like, oh, I'll just go in and fix it. And so they updated something, and the finding it and fixing it was pretty easy, but the problem was they had like a huge gain on something that they sold. So they would have had to go back and amend the return, which is another service you're paying for,
That's
right?
another, yeah. When you have to
So
amend the return, so typically, like if a firm makes a mistake and has to amend for the client, then they generally will not charge. They shouldn't charge, in my opinion. Like I wouldn't charge if there was a mistake I made. But
right,
if the client brings up something that the firm didn't know about after they filed the original return, then this is going to be even more money. Yeah.
yeah, and that can be easily thousands of dollars, especially if you have a lot of stuff going on. And it's kind of funny, not to poke fun at anyone, but I've noticed that kind of generally the wealthier people that I've worked with are a lot more flippant about selling and buying really huge assets that, to me would be a huge deal. They're like, oh yeah, I sold a couple houses last year in December that I forgot to tell you about.
Oh
And
yeah, they
then
don't.
like,
It's
oh,
crazy.
I
They
bought a
don't even.
plane.
Yeah, they do it so often. They it's like them going to the grocery store and buying a couple of goods. They don't even think about it. Like for most people,
Yeah.
that would be a major life transaction. But for them, they're like, oh, I sold a couple homes, whatever. Can you just figure this out for me? It's like
Yeah.
what?
But I've had clients delete things in a prior year or even several years back, and thinking they were doing the right thing. And in a couple cases, it could be argued that they did, but just the timing of it didn't work out in their favor for having to go to fixing it in the current year basically and adding time to the current year. And this wasn't my practice, by the way. This was out of my control. I wasn't in charge of the billing.
Sure.
At the time, that'd be questionable if I would charge for that, depending on who the onus is on. But
tell me what you think, Grant. But so I don't know if a lot of people know this, but for those of you who are listening, if you want a large firm to do your books for you, it's quite expensive. So a lot of firms most firms charge by the hour. So I can tell you that like at some of the firms I worked at, the average bookkeeping rate per hour was it ranged between like $100 to like $140 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Is that about right?
Yeah, and I know a lot of places, especially around here, where it's gone up since then.
Oh yeah, it's gone up significantly because everything else has gone up. The software has gone up, so all their overhead's gone up. So right. Yeah, that's definitely gone up as well. We got a couple of comments here I want to point out here. So Kel says, "Oh, this is pretty funny. A tax professor brought the printed tax code to a class and had to use 1 to 2 dollies to wheel the books in."
I was just about to say I could imagine like him trucking a wagon in.
Yeah,
behind him.
And then Dan's Blues. How's it going, Dan? So actually, Dan, I'm glad you could be part of the stream tonight. So he's actually, Dan, I believe, is a CPA himself. I don't know, but I know he does taxes for a living. He says something as simple as voiding a check from a prior year after a return has been filed changes everything. Good point. So yeah,
yep.
You're spot on, Grant. Us accountants all agree with you. In fact, I will like if I'm working on, especially somebody's corporate return, if I'm doing a business return for somebody, the very first thing I'm looking at the numbers from the prior year, because just like you're saying, if I see that the retained earnings is no longer matching what the prior year retained earnings were for the tax return, I know something has changed in their accounting records immediately. And that takes extra work. In fact, I just, oh yeah, Dan. Yeah, see, Dan is a CPA. Okay, I thought so. But I just trained a client that have had to look for this themselves. So one thing I like to do with my clients after I've prepared their tax return is I will give them the adjusting journal entries and what their trial balance looks like after it's done. And so they will then input those entries into their system and they send it back to me, and I will review the numbers to make sure that their numbers match what I had. And if we're good, we're good. But if they don't, then we talk about, okay, what's different. And we found there has been a couple instances where luckily I didn't file their tax return before I did that process. Otherwise I would have had to amend the tax return.
As an accountant, is there anything that drains the color from your face while preparing a return faster than seeing retained earnings not tie?
Oh no, not much. Or the only other thing would be like if you're about done and you've spent all the time working everything up, and then all of a sudden they drop in a new major piece of information at the back end. I despise that.
That's true.
But it happens, and you deal with it. But it does make it. It does add a lot more time to the project because then you have to rework everything, not just the tax return.
Yeah, and the other good news with that too is, especially for actual businesses, not just individuals, but businesses, let's say if you have like a finance department or a couple people, like a receivables person and a payables person and stuff, a lot of software has a setting where you can lock the data as of a certain date.
Oh yeah.
That's always something I would do without fail every single time I was working on someone's books, just in case that was the situation, is I would lock it. And you can set a password and you can tell the owner the password. Like if I was working on a business, and I was in contact with the CEO, I could say, hey, I've locked your books prior to the prior year. Here's the password if you ever need to get into it. But that way, if you have bookkeepers or even tax people or anyone in the books, it'll warn you or just flat out won't let you change anything in the prior year.
Yeah, I think that's a good practice, honestly.
Yeah.
Because there should be very few reasons why you would actually need to change the prior year. It's in fact, almost never in most circumstances.
Yeah, it can usually be handled in the current year.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Exactly.
and it can save you unbelievable amounts of money on the time spent doing your returns and things like that.
There is one money saving tip I want to add here, if you don't mind, with
Oh no,
accounting
please
that
do.
you didn't mention yet. Maybe you're probably gonna mention it, but I'm just gonna I'll throw it in here. So this is one. Now these are business cards, but pretend they're credit cards. Okay, just pretend these are credit cards, and this also racks up a ton of money for clients. On their This racks up the fees on their accounting bill. Something as simple as what I'm about to explain. So, um, there was a veterinarian I worked on, very, very successful veterinarian, was making well over $1 million per year. He was a money making machine. He worked on horses.
Okay.
I got to meet the guy, incredible guy. But what he didn't think about was when he was out and about doing his shopping, is he had in his wallet, he had his business credit card and he had his personal credit card, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing that rang up his bill on his accounting so much was he was not diligent and disciplined about just using his business card for business purchases. And
Yep.
so instead of having maybe like let's say 20 business transactions, instead he was using his business card all the time for personal transactions. So instead of somebody like me or whomever was working on his books looking at just 20 line items, they had to look at 100 line items or more and figure out, and then back and forth email correspondence. Hey, what's this? What's this? Is this business related? And that
Yep.
just adds so much time for the bill. So what I'm saying is simply by him using the wrong card and not being disciplined about it, probably was costing him hundreds of dollars more per month. Hundreds, probably close to 1,000 more a month, to be honest.
Yep. That's actually a very good point. And even on top of that, that can lead to people losing out on money. I've seen people almost lose out on tax benefit or refunds. Like a lot of, especially like sole proprietors, contractors, people who are on the job, a lot, and always stay very busy. Don't even think about this, sometimes because they're so busy focused on other things. But like, I know a contractor who did a lot of construction, and he would on the job, if he needed something, he would go to Lowe's or Home Depot and swipe his personal debit card,
Well,
right, to
yes.
pay for it, because you're on the job. The customer wants something done, you got to get it done, and would forget about it. And
Yeah.
so at the end of the year, when you do this 100 times or hundreds of times, it never goes into your books because you forget about it, and it's your personal card, right? So if you turn your books in, you would lose out on the reduction of all that income because it's not in your books. And
Right.
there's part of the, it's not like it's not like anyone's to blame or anything, because he's not an accountant, and he's a very busy sole proprietor, operating a business. But just things like that, if you know to think about it, or hopefully your accountant, if you go to a new accountant or something and they share that, they should be sharing this with you, like, hey, do you have any personal cards or anything that you've used to buy business supplies or anything like that? Kind of that's something that can cost you money in a different way, not racking up your accounting bill per se, but also losing out on like a refund, because there's 30,000 of personal or business expenses that weren't captured
Yeah. No,
correctly.
absolutely. And you just won't know. Your accountant won't know because they can only see usually the business bank accounts or the business
Right.
books. And so they're unless you tell them, they're not going to know what else is out there.
And if this has been going on for a while, like a few years, and then you learn about it and then share that with your accountant, they can amend their returns and get you that refund. But now your refund's going to be eaten into by the accounting fees to amend the returns.
Exactly. Yeah. So
So
it gets them
full
some money
circle.
back, but not as much as if they were to just told them from the get go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I could say like probably a blanket thing that would be good to ask whenever you meet with your CPA or your tax preparer or anyone, is to say, like, do you have any questions of anything? Like, do you have anything for me that I might not be thinking of that could help save me money or that you need, like to help maximize your refund or something.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure, people make assumptions all the time. I'm sure there's CPAs that assume business owners, especially if they've been in business for a while, might know about this stuff and not ask and, just take the books and do the return.
Right.
That's one thing I always do, especially with brand new clients, is like, let me know about all your business accounts, what to look for. Do you have any personal cards you use for business or, anything like that? Get all their vehicle information. How often do you drive your car for business? All that kind of stuff. Not answering questions or not being asked questions can cost you money too, and your refund when you file at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's a great point. And there was one of my new clients this year where I asked him a bunch of questions because I looked at his business books and I just felt like there was things missing because the numbers he was telling me, they just weren't adding up. And sure enough, we found over $15,000 more in personal expenses that he paid out of his own wallet for his business. And then we got those on the books and made a significant difference on his taxes. So just things like that. Yeah, you want somebody who's thinking about these things. And if you always say you want a bookkeeper, accountant, or CPA who can see what's not being seen. Like they can, if it's not on paper, they can think what's missing from this and ask the right questions to get you the best result possible as a client.
Right. Yeah, it comes back to, the experience too, and seeing this for a long time. Is, instead of looking at things like, okay, income is this, expenses are this, net income is this, all right, it ties, file the return and move on.
Yeah.
Looking at it and saying, okay, is there anything I could be missing? Maybe this month looks really light in expenses. Maybe the business owner used a personal card or something, could be something to ask about if it's not in the books. Things like that, that 10,000 foot view, it doesn't always help, but I would always rather have it than not have it.
Well, I think as a client, they feel so much more well taken care of if their CPA is asking them these questions, and at least they know they're trying to get the best result possible. Versus if they're like, "Oh, here's your numbers, I plugged them in, you're done. I'll talk to you next year. Bye." Clients hate that. Like a lot of the clients I'm receiving these days that's the constant point of feedback I'm getting of why they're leaving their accountant is because they're not getting any personal connection. They don't feel like their accountant's really trying to do anything extra for them. It's just, here, take your numbers. I'm busy. Here's your tax return. Goodbye. And that's just, it's sad. And I know accountants are busy, but they really, I think as a whole, we're in the customer service industry, and our job is to provide the best service possible, at least from my standpoint. And that's what makes it fun, is how we can help those who we work with. But so Grant, I think we're getting near the end of our time here, but I know you're working on a QuickBooks course. And tell me just real briefly about that, and when can people expect that for you to have that ready?
All right. Yeah. So I am working on a QuickBooks Online course. It's going to be published on Udemy. I think it's a pretty popular website. They have a ton of instructional lectures and things you can go on there. A lot of free stuff, a lot of paid stuff. Highly recommend. I'm planning to get it. It's been pushed out a little bit. It's so much work. I didn't realize. I'd like to also mention to all people listening, I've grown such an appreciation for all the work Mike puts into these videos and stuff. As someone who just now learned how to shoot video and edit and record audio and things like that, even having trouble with my camera here, it's so much work. The content that this guy puts out is amazing.
Oh, thank you. I do appreciate that. Yeah, it's
brand new discovered respect for you on that front. But I'm getting a couple things finalized, and I think they have to review anything you submit as a course. So it might be hopefully for sure in the next couple weeks. It should be finalized. I'm hoping at least mid next week. I have a temporary email account that I set up just to be able to create that course. I created a QuickBooks file from scratch. So I made a kind of like a fake temporary account. So the email is gccexample@gmail.com. So if you're interested, you can just send me an email to that address. I probably won't keep it forever, probably only until the course goes up. But if I get an email from you, let's say by Friday, I can give you like 40% off, let's say. I'm not sure what the price is yet. And I still have to learn how discount codes and stuff work. But if you're interested, feel free to email me there. I can get a discount set up, and an email is not a guarantee that you are obligated to buy the course. You can still opt out at any time, but
Sure.
I'll figure it out. If I have to send you Venmo or something, I'll find you a way to get 40% off for sure. But definitely keep an eye out for that if you're interested.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Grant. And for the longtime viewers of this channel, like if you follow my videos for many, many years, I really don't promote anything on this channel in terms of somebody's selling something, but knowing Grant and what he does and his level of skill, I'm definitely going to be taking a look at his course personally. And then if I like it, I will be promoting it on the channel, just because I want to help. I have clients throughout the country who are getting into QuickBooks, just want to learn how to work it better. And then Grant is such an expert at QuickBooks, has professional level experience, that I definitely won't mind if I like the course, which I'm probably going to love it. I'm gonna recommend it to people. So, and thank you for putting it together, because I don't know if I'd want to put it together. So I commend you.
The other challenge too is, which I've tried to take into account, is I know accounting is not the most interesting topic for most people. So I try to make it, kind of silly and have fun with it. The whole course is about me. I make a fake restaurant called Grant's Gourmet Cuisine, where I sell chicken nuggets and pizza and hot dogs and other fun stuff. And you'll get to see kind of the whole accounting cycle, how to handle just about everything that QuickBooks has to offer. And it's going to be in line with my business model. So it's going to be super affordable. I want anyone who is curious about it to be able to have access to it. It's not going to be super expensive.
Awesome.
Yeah, but it's been such a fun project. And like I said, I watch movies differently now, knowing all the editing and stuff that has had to go into it. Everything on YouTube I watch is different. Like
it is. And it's honestly,
crazy.
on YouTube, I'm still like an amateur. Like I do my best to really produce really legit content. Like, it's not flashy, it's not fancy, but it's the real deal. I'll say that. But yeah, in terms of fancy editing and whatnot, it's just not there. Like, because if you watch like a TV show, you'll notice they switch the camera angle like every 3 seconds. Almost every 3 seconds, the scene is switching. And I'm like, holy smokes, I don't have that much time to edit, but maybe someday.
Yeah, I have I think so far I'm not done, but I have about 3.5 hours of footage that I'm actually going to use. And I've been editing like just about all day these last few days. Editing a 10-minute video takes me about an hour.
Wow.
Like it takes so much longer than you think. And so that's why I know like all these content creators on YouTube, just like yourself, you see like a 5, 10 or 15-minute video, there's like hours for sure that have gone into editing that. It's crazy.
I have a lot of respect for anybody who's really good at video and editing, because I'm just not that good at it. But I try. I attempt to YouTube as a CPA. But so thank you for watching, everybody. I wanted to mention like how you can contact Grant. So like I said, Grant and I do work together from time to time, and he's one of the bookkeepers I do recommend. Grant, now you're able to work with people across the country. Is that right?
Yeah. So I do virtual accounting, or like Zoom, WebEx, any kind of virtual stuff if you need it. If you're here locally, I'll go out to your business location, or work from home, whatever's easier for you.
Okay, awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And him and I work really well together, just because we worked at the same firm, and we have a lot of this. We operate in a very similar capacity, so that's why I trust Grant a lot. I put a lot of credibility towards him because I know what he can do. And then I'm going to put up, if you don't mind, I'm going to put your website up on screen so they can see how to contact you if they need.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Bookkeeping help, payroll, other types of consulting. So let me put up the banner. let's see here. There it is. Grantscorporateconsulting.com is where you can find Grant's website.
Yes, sir.
You can learn all about Grant. You can find a way to contact him here. And these all here. Oh, here's the different things he'll do, like financial statements, cash management, budget development. He'll help you streamline your processes, payroll preparation, audit, tax return. Audit/tax return prep work, staff training. So just a variety of different things he offers. And Grant, I just appreciate your time and you coming on the channel to share some of your wisdom and the ways people can save money with their books. And not only just save money, well, we talked about how do you find a qualified person to help you with the process in the first place.
Yeah, Mike, thank you so much for having me. It's been such an absolute blast this past hour or so. Thanks to everyone who's been listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your day wherever you are, and much success to all of you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I'm just going to jump in the comments real quick here. See if there's any more. Oh, there's one last comment I want to read off here. It says, Kel says, accountants, happiness is debits equals credits. Yes.
Yep.
My wife's an accountant, so she knows that very well. Very, very well. That's the way it is. Nerdy people like myself can only find other accountants to go out with. That's how it is.
That's very true.
All right. Well, this is a blast. Well, I hope to have you on here again at some point. I'm sure the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure this Grant guy is full of other knowledge as well. So we barely scratched the surface, but thanks again, Grant. And everybody feel free to share this information with your accountant, with your friends, your family. Especially if you know business owners who have a bookkeeper or working with an accountant, some of these tips can really help them. I think what Grant shared here. So everybody across the United States, I hope you have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you in the next video. So take care, everybody, and I thank you so much for taking time to be here. Bye, everybody.